the diet that you choose has nothing to do with weight loss. A lot of people are like, what? What are you talking about? People can lose weight on a Mediterranean diet. They can lose weight on paleo, a Whole30, a carnivore, a keto, a vegan. Like, weight loss is the most common red herring in the health and fitness space that people fall for day in and day out.
Today we're going to talk about 3 keys to good nutrition. And the funny thing is, it's not about the 3 keys. It is really about the principles that will help us optimize for the quality of our life. Easy to say, much harder to do, because we have a lot of conflicting information out there. A lot of people, and everybody seems to be right. They have peer-reviewed studies, research to back up what they're saying. It's conflicting, but as our guest says, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong. So how do we navigate this whole mess to make it easy for ourselves to finally live a good quality life, be healthy, optimize for peak performance? And all of that with like 3 easy steps. Not always possible, but our guest makes it very, very simple. It's all about having these incremental changes that we will be able to make without making it difficult. It's very important because that's all we talk about integrative healthcare. That's all part of integrative health as well. If you've been following us, you know that Polish Your Life, our doctors networking group, our integrative healthcare community, we talk about this one specific problem that a lot of people have, which is a lot of people go from doctor to doctor, follow recommendations, and sometimes, many times, they actually don't get better. And now what? What's supposed to be done? I believe they need a lot of information, a lot of resources beforehand, so they're going to be ready and will know what to do to get back to proper health. And this is what we are talking about today. This is part of integrative healthcare. It's really, really important. So my guest today is a very special guest. He is a coach who's been through a lot himself, and his remarkable journey from bad health to really good health right now, from not having body confidence to having pretty good body confidence, I can imagine. And you know what? He teaches us how we can do it the easy way. Body confidence is not really about aesthetics. It's about what you can do with your body. Coach Bronson Dant, welcome to PYL.
Hey, thanks
How
for
are
having
you?
me back. A second time. I feel honored. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. Let's start with the 3 keys to proper nutrition. But before you give the 3 keys, I would like you to give a little bit of context.
Who is this guy? How does he know? What does he know? Where did he come from? All that good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm Coach Bronson. I've been in the health and fitness space for, gosh, almost 15 years. It's crazy to say that. It goes by so fast. I started in my mid to late 30s on my own personal journey and found fitness. I found CrossFit. I got into the one of the pillars or the domains of health that I talk about in the fitness domain, of thinking that everything that I needed to do to fix the problems that I had in my life was just about getting in shape. I went from that to realizing that that got me to a point, and then I hit a wall, started gaining weight, never fixed really any of my health issues, started having injuries because now I had health issues. I hadn't lost any weight, and now I'm working out all this time, and now I'm starting to break down, and then realized that adding nutrition to the mix was the second piece that I needed, the piece of the puzzle to get me to the next level. And that fixed a lot of my issues. Going through the process as a coach has exposed me to the importance of the entire process being based in mindset, and realizing over the past 10 plus years that meal plans, exercise programs, and challenges, all of the tactical things that people do to improve their health, lose weight, get in shape, all the different buzzwords when it comes to health and fitness are easy. People are going to hear that and go, what are you talking about? Nutrition's not easy. Fitness isn't easy. Yeah, it is. I can give anybody macros. You can lose weight on any diet. You can get in shape doing most of the variations of exercise programs that are out there. The hard part is the mental game that we have to play in changing our mindset, changing our perceptions, removing limiting beliefs, and doing the things to build habits and change our behavior so that we consistently do the things that are easy. Fitness is easy, nutrition is easy. The mind game is where the challenge really comes in. So putting all of that together is kind of really where I'm at now. We talked right before we recorded that you feel like I've evolved over the past few years, and I have very much so. And I used to, when I first opened my gym, I used to own a CrossFit gym. When I first opened my gym, I was very much, this is how you work out. This is how the movement should be. Do this, do this, do this. And then I started realizing, hey, wait a second. I need to back off a little bit, meet people where they are. Not everybody can do it to the standards that I'm trying to enforce. Let's meet everybody where they are and realize this is a long game. I don't have to give somebody 18 corrections in a movement on day one. I want them to stick around for 5 years, and I can give them all the corrections they need over 5 years. And it's a very different interaction. It's a very different process when you can break things down, take your time, don't try to rush it. What's the simplest, easiest thing that we can get someone to do to move forward? Any movement forward is progress. It doesn't have to happen in one day. So I had to relearn that, right? It's crazy how sometimes we have to make the same mistakes over and over again before it really sinks in. So I learned that on the fitness side. When I started really digging into the nutrition piece and making changes there, I had to do it all over again. Oh my gosh, I found the solution for everybody. Everybody should do it this way. This is the best thing. No one should be doing anything different. And then it's like, well, wait a second, that's not going to work for everybody. Not everybody's ready for that. Okay, what's the principles behind why this nutrition program is working? And then how can I implement the principles at the easiest, most attainable and approachable level to get people to move forward, whether they go 100% in and jump into the deep end or not? And so that's where all of this stuff kind of comes into play of putting these things together. I mean, I've got certifications, I've got training, I've been doing this for a long time, but it's the experience of seeing things in real life and working with people and making the mistakes and figuring out what's working and what's not working and experimenting on myself and people that I work with to kind of figure out what this methodology is really all about and how, principles, applied principles are more effective than any specific rule, guideline, key, protocol, system, whatever else. And that's kind of where we're coming from. That's the context for this.
That's so important. And I want you to touch on the concepts, principles, and protocols, because a lot of people are confused and they don't know. You mentioned that one of them should be married, another one should be dated, right? So what's up with that?
What we're talking about is, I just alluded to it a little bit, a second ago, is the principles behind why something works is more important than how it works. Okay. Many people that I work with, a lot of influencers and information you see out there are people focused on the mechanisms of biology, the mechanisms of fitness, exercise science, nutrition science, things like that. And it's great information. Okay, great. But how does that help somebody actually make a change in their life? Outside of, like you said in the introduction, adding complexity, adding information, often conflicting, adding this whole bunch of things where now this scientist over here says this thing, this doctor over here says this thing, and now they're completely opposite of each other. What do I do? Right? So the mechanisms are often out of context to what your situation is as an individual. Okay, so if somebody is coming from, if a doctor whose primary focus and background is in bariatric surgery and he's talking about a mechanism for something that is targeted at his clients, his patients, people that he's trying to either help avoid bariatric surgery or prepare for bariatric surgery, and you have a completely different scenario. Maybe your only issue is you're dealing with autoimmune. Maybe you got Hashimoto's. You're trying to figure out how to fix Hashimoto's. Why are you listening to the bariatric surgeon who's given mechanisms on how to handle those issues and deal with that? The tips and tools and information he's talking about has nothing to do with you, right? If you're an in shape person, fairly in shape, you have a pretty good body composition, and you're trying to optimize your performance, why are you listening to information about a specific diet or fitness protocol from somebody who is maybe a doctor whose primary focus is on weight loss and dealing with severely obese people, and her only goal in life is to get people to lose weight as fast as possible so they don't die. We're talking about specific things to implement. So when we talk about these contexts, we're taking the context, we say this is a thing, and think about it like a toolbox. If I have a screw, my context is a screw. Out of context is a hammer. A lot of people are screws trying to use a hammer to fix their problem. Right? That's the protocol. The protocol is the hammer on the screw. Well, guess what? That protocol is not working for you because it's out of context. Right? Now, understanding that I need a tool that is going to do something that a screw can do. I can use a Phillips head. I can use a flathead. I can use a drill. I can do a hand. Like there's a lot of different ways and types of screwdrivers that are out there. So the concept of screwdriver is at a next level up, right? But it fits your specific context without you having to find some specific thing out there. So when we talk about principles and protocols, we're talking about levels, concepts of application. Okay, so I'll just use an example for anybody that's familiar with the ketogenic or carnivore diet, or different fasting or type nutrition protocols. If you're familiar with protein sparing modified fast, right? That's a favorite one. A lot of people use it for weight loss, for fat loss. PSMF is a fantastic tool that only specific people should be using. Okay, it is a protocol that requires specific, complex rules and guidelines that must be followed. There is no leeway in how you implement PSMF. Okay, I'm going to get a certain amount of protein, a certain amount of fat on certain days. On the other days, I'm getting a certain amount of protein, a certain amount of fat on different days, right? I have that schedule. It's 2 days a week. It's 3 days a week. It's 1 week on, 1 week out, whatever plan you put in there. It's specific and you have to follow the rules. That's one of the characteristics of a protocol. Okay. When we talk about concepts and principles, the concept and principle behind PSMF is prioritize protein. That's the basic, most fundamental thing that you can do and say, okay, if I need to prioritize protein in my life, do I need PSMF or can I just add a little extra protein to every meal? Or just have one meal that has more protein than normal? Or just like the different and the characteristic of a principle or protocol is that it is adaptable, it is flexible, and there is individuality that a person can apply based on their specific context. Right? So you may say, I'm going to increase my protein by adding 4 ounces of more meat to every meal that I have each day. I may say, I'm just going to eat an extra meal every day. We still both met that requirement. But you can't do that with the guidelines within a protocol. Within PSMF, it doesn't work that way. I've got to do these specific things at these specific times under these guidelines and rules. So protocols have rules. Protocols are usually short-term benefit, and protocols usually only work to a point, and then you have to find something else because that protocol is no longer working. Principles are adaptable. They can be individualized. They usually last longer because they are at the base level of what you need. They're the minimum effective dose in many cases. So they have a longer shelf life of how long you can follow that. And in many cases, if you're using the right concepts and principles, they never go away, right? If you think of prioritized protein as a base level nutrition concept and protocol, that should never be something you're not doing. No matter what nutrition plan that you're on, you should always be prioritizing protein, right? So that's kind of the breakdown. We have protocols that you want to date. They're short term. Their relationship's not going to last very long, and you're probably going to want to move on at some point. And then you have concepts and principles that you're going to want to marry, because once you find the ones that work for you, you're never going to want to let them go.
I love that. And thank you for explaining this, because I think that's where people get lost, because they follow a protocol, they follow a specific mechanism, they follow a specific diet, which may not be a bad diet, it may be a fantastic diet. What you talk about is not only that the diet may be sometimes is the right fit, sometimes is not the right thing, the right thing to do and the right fit, but also it could be not the right fit in time.
Yes,
right?
absolutely. Oh, 100%. And you
So
see that,
if somebody
that.
is in recovery, they need a different protocol,
Yes.
and then the other protocol may be working. So sometimes the synchronization in time can be crucial, and judging the protocol for its results at the wrong time could be a big mistake.
Right. And it starts with you understanding where you're actually at and what you're trying to do. And that's where the biggest mistake is made in the process. If the goal that you're shooting for isn't the real goal, then anything you put in action to reach that goal isn't going to be the right choice.
Give me an example
I want to lose weight.
that you see all the time. Okay, losing weight is
I want to
awesome.
lose
Okay.
weight. Okay, great. We can lose weight. You can lose weight right now without doing anything. Just stop eating. I can help
Great
anybody
protocol.
lose weight starting right this second. Just stop eating and you'll lose weight. The diet that you choose has nothing to do with weight loss. A lot of people are like, what? What are you talking about? People can lose weight on a Mediterranean diet. They can lose weight on a paleo, a Whole30, a carnivore, a keto, a vegan. Like, weight loss is the most common red herring in the health and fitness space that people fall for day in and day out. Because weight loss is what sells. Weight loss is the visual thing that's in front of the consumer that is easily marketable to say, look at all these people with six packs. Don't you want to be like us? All you have to do is lose weight. I can tell you how. And all of the programs work because all of the programs follow the same principles. Eat less, build muscle. Done. That's the easiest thing in the world, right? No, it's not, because there's more to it. And here's the thing. When the target is weight loss, and this is what I'm talking about, if the goal is not the real goal, then anything you do to get there isn't the right path. Okay? If you think that you're going to get where you want to go in life just by weight loss, I've seen it day in, I've seen it person over person, year over year, day over day. People reach their goal of weight and then they go, oh, I'm not happy. This isn't doing anything for me. I feel depressed. I feel down. This is a letdown. It wasn't as big of a deal as I thought it was going to be when I saw that number on the scale, right? What really works for people is taking a step back and asking the question, why do I want to lose the weight? When you start digging into the reason behind why you think the weight loss is affecting your life, and you start changing the conversation from how do I look, how much do I weigh, to what is the quality of life that is out of my reach right now? What are the things that I can't physically do? What are the health limitations that I have? What are the pills that I want to stop taking? What are the pains and aches and chronic issues that I'm having that I want to get out of my life? What are the experiences in life that I have to say no to on a regular basis because I can't physically do those things? When you start looking at the picture from that perspective, you start realizing that the goal has nothing to do with weight. The goal has to do with how do I increase my personal freedom and physical independence. That's what we're talking about. When you have that as the goal, the path becomes a lot clearer because now we're talking about things that aren't superficial. We're talking about how do we make fundamental changes in how our body performs, and it's a much clearer path to the things that we need to do. Right? When we're talking, here's go ahead, go ahead, and then I'll connect that dot with the
I'm trying to
nutrition
get a
stuff.
practical. So somebody's listening to the conversation,
Yep.
and everything you're saying really sounds very easy, and I love that because
Mm-hmm.
I want people to see that it does not have to be so complex. Even if it is complex,
Mm-hmm.
you don't need to know all the things. Like you
Yes.
mentioned, you don't need to know how
Yeah.
the engine works to be able to drive your car.
Bingo.
Very important. What I want people to know when they're listening to this conversation is basically, where do I start? So
Yes.
somebody knows they need to lose weight because it's limiting their life in a specific way. So now they get to the reason, they get to
Yep.
the why. I
Yep.
love that. So that's the base, right?
Yep.
What's the next step that you would say? How do you assess, which route to go?
Yeah. So this is where we talk about what are the concepts that apply, and if we're going to focus specifically on the nutrition piece, right? A lot of people say they start the whole process with if the goal is I need to lose weight, it's just about, okay, I need to count my calories, get a macro plan, whatever it is, and then just restrict and don't eat as much, and I'll be fine. Okay. Yeah, no, okay, that's great. That's great for weight loss, but does that fix function? Okay, so when we talk about the goal and the plan, if the goal is weight loss, then we can lose weight, but we're not addressing health and function. So if we want to look at quality of life things I just talked about, if we want to look at improving how your body works, then the question is, we got three things. This is where you talk about the three keys to nutrition. What are the three concepts of good nutrition that will improve your health, your metabolic function, and result in weight loss? I should say fat loss, okay? Because we're not looking for weight loss. That's a whole other discussion. We're looking for fat loss. So we're targeting, and this is the mindset shift, we're targeting function that will result in fat loss. We're not targeting fat loss. Okay, so the idea, and that's where the goal makes a difference. I wrote an article, and it was in my last book, called "Fat Loss is Dead." Right. Anytime we focus on fat loss first, we're talking about a short-term restrictive mindset and mentality that doesn't improve quality of life and function. So what we're looking to do is improving quality of life and function. So we need to focus on simple things. It's not about counting your macros. It's not about tracking your food. It's not about, those things are all important, and they can have a role, and they do fit at some point, but they may not need to be the first thing that you try to do. Right? The first thing you need to try to do is simply pick foods that are as nutrient dense as possible. Right? Just change your diet, or include one thing a day that you replace a packaged good with a whole food. Right? Nutrient density is the first thing to focus on. What is something that I can do in my life? Now, I'm not going to tell you what that is. I'm not giving you a rule or a guideline or a schedule or an amount. Nutrient density is the first thing to focus on. What is something that I can do? If I am currently going out and getting, a bunch of frozen meals every day, maybe I, don't buy those frozen meals, and I get something I can make one meal, fresh food from home, one day a week. It can be one day a week. One little change like that, and you're going to start seeing some improvement, seeing that change, start implementing that thing. You can build on that. Maybe you go from 1 day a week to 2 days a week to 3 days a week, something like that.
You know what I love about this? It's actually, it sounds easy, and it is easy to implement, and it's not scary, and you can build up from that one thing. It's just like working out. Do a crappy workout, or like Tim Ferriss says, write 2 crappy pages per day. You may write a book. I want you to talk about your book as well, because you were able to write not 1 but 2. So that's, to me, and articles and all the other things, then publications that you have. So what I'm thinking about is, how do we feel good about not doing the whole protocol if I only do one thing, if I'm really ambitious? So let's say somebody is starting, right? So they get to the reason. They're like, okay, now I know I need to pick that number 1, nutrient dense foods, right? So they're going to make that change. But now they can also think, hey, listen, I'm an ambitious guy or ambitious woman, and I would like to do it all. I would like to do as much as possible. What do you do in that case?
So we could get into a whole nother discussion, because there's 5 questions that you want to ask yourself whenever you're making these changes. And one of those questions is the change that I want to make sustainable? And that's really where you have to start. You can want to do a whole bunch of things, but if you start to do too much and the disruption outweighs the benefit, then you've made too much of a change, and it's not sustainable, and you're going to go backwards.
Makes
you're going to
a
quit.
whole lot of sense. And it
Right?
also varies person to person.
Exactly.
Because carnivore is not sustainable for a lot of people. It is surprisingly sustainable to you for years and years, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it also needs to be customized to how people can stick to a given protocol, or diet, etc.
Yeah.
So okay, I got that. So
Yep.
there are 5 questions. One of them, is this actually sustainable for me?
Yeah, that's one of the questions. So, and if we can go back to the other nutrition concepts, but the 5 core concepts of change or progress or success, basically are is what you're about to do a solution within your context? Is this for you, or are you doing it just because somebody on the internet said to do it? Okay. So the thing that you're deciding to do, is it something that's really going to move you forward based on where you are, where you've been, and where you're trying to go? Okay, that's the first question. If you can say yes, you're on the right track. Is this something that is taking your entire lifestyle into account before you make the change? If you have kids, a spouse, a job, 2 jobs, whatever it may be, other hobbies, things in your schedule, sports, pets, whatever, if you're going to say, I'm going to do all these things right up front, and now you're completely throwing your entire life in disarray because you're trying to add something new in, and it's messing everybody in your life schedule up, then it might not be sustainable, and you might not want to do that. You might want to find something that's a little bit more approachable and attainable within the lifestyle that you're currently living. So it's a holistic perspective. Can I fit this into my current lifestyle is one of the questions. The third question is, am I following a concept? Am I basing this choice of what I'm going to do for my nutrition or fitness on something that is conceptually solid? Does it have a good foundation in concept? Or is it a protocol that I thought looked cool, and I think it's going to get me somewhere quick? If you're trying to do a quick fix thing or a shortcut, I guarantee you can't say no, or you can't say yes to that's a concept. Okay, if it's not conceptually sound, then it's probably not something you should waste your time on. Okay, the fourth one is the sustainable question. Is this something that I can fit in to now without causing undue stress and maintain over a long period of time? Because if I can't maintain it, I can't build on it. The whole idea is something small till it becomes a habit, and then you add something onto that till it becomes a habit, then you add something onto that till it becomes a habit. So if you're making changes that you can't sustain, you'll never progress to the next level. So that's the other part, is the other question. Is this sustainable? That's question 4. And then question 5 is the fun one. Is the end result or the actions that I need to take to do this measurable? If I can't measure whether I'm doing what I need to do or it's working for me one way or the other, then it's not something that I should be doing, because if it's not measurable, there's no way to show progress.
So important. I never
Right?
thought about this in this way, but it's a lot of people may follow something that is truly hard to measure. Like, for example, even like a feel good. I want to feel better.
Right.
What
What
do
does
you
that
mean?
mean?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So and you really see, I want to have more energy, but how are you going to measure that energy exactly? Right.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
very, very interesting question. And it sounds very logical, but I don't think a lot of people actually ask themselves a question before
Yeah.
they start.
Yeah. And those are the 5
So
things, right?
thanks.
Is it
Yeah, thanks for
individual?
sharing this.
Is it individual? Is it holistic? Is it based in concept? Is it sustainable? And is it measurable? If you can say
Very
yes
good.
to those things, then you're probably making a pretty solid choice in what you've decided to do to get yourself to the next step.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're listening to this and now you are a little bit confused about the 3 keys to proper nutrition,
Yeah.
and
Let's break those down.
also the 5 questions, I want to bring it to back to the 3, right? So
Yep.
we went with the first one. I would like people to understand that the reason why we also switch to the 5 is, logically you have to have these questions in the mix, because if you don't ask yourself the questions, then you're just going to be following the 3, and it's not going to be easy for you.
Right.
So
Right.
it actually makes sense that we brought up the 5 questions to ask yourself, and that's something that we can put in the show notes as well, because I think these are the questions. If you could share the way that that you would like them to be written in the show notes, that would be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
would be great.
Well, you can get it in the next book. I mean, we're essentially talking about the outline for the book that's coming out in September. So it'll
Beautiful.
all be in there.
Beautiful. So we need to put the
But
link where people can get that info
yeah,
for
absolutely,
sure.
absolutely. So the 5 questions, the 5 concepts that everybody should base their choices on, lead to that next level, which is the specific areas of fitness, of mindset, nutrition, and fitness. So in the nutrition area, what I call the nutrition domain, we have 3 key tenets or concepts that drive everything that works about good nutrition. I don't care what nutrition protocol you're on, they work for these 3 reasons. They work because they optimize or improve from where you are Now, and I want to say that's a key point to understand from where you are now, because compared to each other, they have different impacts, right? If I'm on standard American diet and I do any diet that meets any of these requirements, I'm going to improve. It may not be the same if I'm on carnivore and I try to go to vegan, or I'm on Whole30 and I try to go to carnivore, things like that. So within them, it depends on where you are. So where you are at any given point, you have to look at improving any of these three in order to improve your nutrition. So when people talk about good, what does healthy eating look like? Healthy eating is taking these three concepts and making them better from where you are right now. That's the context. Okay. Better. There isn't a blanket, this is the best. It's better from where you are right now with these three things. If you can improve your nutrient density from where you are right now, you're on the right track. If you can improve the bioavailability of the nutrition that you're getting, then you're on the right track. If you can optimize your satiety through the foods that you're eating, then you're on the right track. So nutrient density, bioavailability, and satiety. If you can optimize those three things just using the food that you're putting into your mouth, then you're going to make better choices than you're currently doing right now.
That is really good to know. And I have a question starting with number 2. So how do people optimize the bioavailability?
And it kind of goes, they kind of work together. Just making a change from processed foods to whole foods is going to improve your nutrient density and your bioavailability. Okay. If you're, another way to improve your bioavailability is to increase your red meat intake. That's another way. Another way, if you do eat vegetables, a lot of vegetables, how you prepare those vegetables can make a difference. So fermentation is one of the best ways to improve the nutrients that your body can absorb from plant food. So there's food preparation, food choice, going to whole foods, things like that are probably the biggest things that you can do.
So give me some examples of what people struggle with. So somebody's listening to this and they're like, okay, well, I have this one specific example. If you pick something that is a frequently asked question, a common problem, I would like you to show how these three apply to that situation.
Well, the most common one we talked a little bit about already, and that is making the switch from processed food to whole food. That by itself is going to handle some level of all three of those concepts, right? Just the impact of getting natural whole food into your body over processed food is automatically going to increase your nutrient density, increase your bioavailability, and increase your satiety. You're going to feel more full after a meal, and that fullness is going to last you longer. You're not going to eat a meal and then an hour later be like, I'm hungry again. It doesn't happen. When you're eating whole, natural foods, the enzymes, the hormone stimulation, all the things that happen is a completely different process, right? You have to remember that processed foods are literally designed to make us hungry so we eat more. They are chemically designed and altered for that to happen. It's the same with, honestly, we can get into this or not, it's the same with fruit, right? People love fruit's the healthiest thing. Okay, great. Fruit's got some benefits, but it's been designed to be more palatable, more cravings triggering, less satiating, and more full of sugar than the natural versions of those plants. People don't realize that most of the vegetables and fruits that we eat today have been genetically modified and altered over hundreds of years, and they're not the same as what our ancestors saw in the ground when they came over on the the pilgrims came over on the Mayflower, right? So
Especially now,
yeah,
when
it's a
they're
whole different
sprayed with a bunch
ballgame.
of different
Yeah,
chemicals, they're not in the soil that needs to be.
right.
So I think that is a big surprise to a lot of people, and that's where you have a lot of conflicting information, like you mentioned
Yep.
as well.
Yep.
People get confused, and some people will give you a pushback on this, but at the same time, we need to be aware that it's not the same apple that it was,
No,
40
not at
years
all.
ago.
But that doesn't mean I don't want people eating apples. If you've been eating a Snickers bar every day for lunch, change it to a friggin' apple. I would rather you eat an apple than a Snickers bar, right? Because an apple, at least it's whole natural food, right? It doesn't have chemicals. It's not processed. It doesn't have any of the other stuff. And it's not nearly as, everything's on a spectrum. Okay. It's not nearly as high on the spectrum as this is closer to killing you than an apple is. Right. So I think for all the zealots out there that are like, we should never eat a fruit and whatever else, it's a spectrum. Everybody lives on a spectrum. Everybody's solution is going to be on a spectrum that matches where they are on that spectrum. So if your challenge is, I need to stop eating Snickers, then replace it with an apple, I'm totally down for that. Let's do that. We can talk about what you can do instead of that apple and maybe switch you to bacon, a year from now, 2 years from now, something like that, right? Or some jerky, something, whatever. But I think understanding, again, everybody's at a different place, and it's based on where a person is right now, and improving any of those three things based on the individual. That's what I love about concepts. We can have the conversation of these three things will work for anybody at any stage in the process because it's completely adaptable to the person.
I have a question. So, a situation that is unusual. I would like to bulk up, right? So I would like to build more muscle. We talk about the third one being, satiety. So you want to manage that hunger. At the same time, you want to be hungry enough to eat enough. So how do you manage that?
So that's a uh, I would say that's probably an advanced concept where we're now talking about a goal that takes us beyond reaching quality of life, and now we're talking about improving some things that are outside of that. So we would add on to the three. We still want the three. We still want nutrient density, bioavailability, and satiety. But now we also want to focus a little bit on understanding what does it mean to prioritize protein and the concepts of macro thresholds and functional macros versus fuel macros, and talking about, okay, the concepts behind how the body utilizes food to do something specific like build lean mass. So within the core concepts that we talk about for nutrition, prioritizing protein is something that would be added in down the road for somebody, right? So if somebody's got to the point where, okay, now they're eating all whole foods, they're cut back on their veggies, or they've learned how to prepare their veggies, so they're getting as much of the nutrition out of it. They're eating more red meat. They've increased their bioavailability. They've got to a point where they understand their hunger signals, and they're not fasting on purpose. They naturally maybe fall into a rhythm of, I feel good. I don't have any cravings anymore. I don't feel like I need to snack, and I only have to eat 2 meals a day. Okay, that's great. They found a balance where everything's kind of come together, and they found a comfortable place where they've started losing some fat, some health issues have started going away, things are kind of working out for them. And they say, hey, you know what? I think I'm at a point where I want to focus on building some muscle now. I want to get to the gym. I want to lift some weights. I want to do some things. Okay, great. You probably need to increase your protein intake, right? Number one, for building muscle. Number two, if you're going to start working out and lifting weights, then you need more protein anyways now, because the demand on your body is going to increase that demand of protein. So now you increase your protein intake a little bit. And then you just get into, okay, how do I increase my protein? Well, prioritizing protein, like we talked about earlier, you can eat a little bit more protein in every meal. You can eat one extra meal a day. However, whatever works for you, understanding that small changes are how you would do that. I'm not going to say I want to increase my protein every day and then add on 2 pounds of meat and try to eat 2 pounds of meat more tomorrow, right? It doesn't work that way, right? You want to build up to it. So the process of change is slow. That's where the sustainable you go back to that thing. Anytime, this is the cool thing about this whole method, right? Anytime you're at these lower level concepts, when you want to make a change, you just go back to the high level 5 questions and ask yourself these questions about whatever change you want to make. I'm ready to increase my muscle, right? I'm in the nutrition concepts. I want to increase muscle and start working out. What are my options? I can do this, this, or this. Okay, let's go ask myself these 5 questions about these options. Which one do I want? Oh, this is the one that makes the most sense. That's what I'm going to do. And you can reuse that cycle over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I got to ask you about carnivore, because this is something that is really controversial to some. fascinating for other people. For me, it's very fascinating. And I also watch Monica go through a lot of different diets. My wife, Monica, for people listening, um, to improve her health. And we also found that certain diets at a certain time in her journey were extremely helpful. And then we kind of like landed on something that is a happy diet for her today, and we may need to adjust it as we go. One of the diets she tried, and we always talked about you when she tried that, was also for a short period of time she tried it, but it was carnivore. And it's the diet where you told, when you told me that you were switching to carnivore, and I remember I was working at that doctor's office in Colombia, and I heard that. I spoke with the doc, and I'm like, I'm worried about him. Is he gonna be
You
okay?
never told me
Is
that.
he is he gonna be fine? Because like I like this guy, and we want him to still be in shape, to look good. And look at this. That was like 7 years ago,
That was
maybe.
6 years
I
ago.
don't
I've been
know.
doing it for
6 years
in
ago.
May 1st. It'll be 6 years.
Look at that. So
Yeah.
6 years later, you seem to be looking the same, if not younger, very, very strong. You're doing good, following, the principles we talk about. And it's fascinating to me because I know that not for everyone, the carnivore is not for everyone, not for everyone for a long period of time. But for you, it seems to be working, not only working, but also working for a long period of time. Tell me, either there is a secret to how you apply carnivore, or maybe there is something that is individually
It's individual.
yours, right?
Yeah, it's
That
individual.
that diet is just adjusted.
Yeah.
It applies to you.
I'll just say, in my experience, anybody that I've worked with, and that we can get there's some nuance in here, because when we talk about how a nutrition protocol works, there's always the question of the protocol, the timing of when someone tries it, like you said, and then how the person actually follows the protocol. So, unfortunately, many of the times we hear people talk about how a nutrition protocol didn't work for them, the percentage of that the protocol was the problem is usually lower than the person following the protocol, right? So we want to just make sure that that's understandable. And I'll just say that, in my experience, anybody that I've worked with that has gone carnivore has worked over 90% of the time. I've had very few people that a carnivore diet did not help improve some markers of quality of life, from a fitness perspective, a blood work perspective, a reduction of medical issues, or removal, complete elimination of medical issues. Um, I've had Hashimoto's go in remission. We've had type 2 diabetes go away. I've had type 1 diabetics who have gone from 120 units of insulin a day to 40, right? I mean, all sorts of things have happened, and with continuing to work out and build muscle and be active and stuff like that. So the carnivore diet, to me, um, even if somebody doesn't think they can do it long term, or doesn't want to do it long term, whatever, I think everybody should try it for 90 days, for two reasons. One, you don't know until you try it. It's that simple. You don't know until you try it. Number two, it's an elimination diet. Even if you just think of it as an short-term elimination diet to get rid of everything, kind of reset. Think of it as a detox, right? I'm going to get everything out of my system. I'm going to eat. This is not debatable for anybody listening. Okay, I'm going to eat the most nutrient-dense, bioavailable, and satiating foods that are on the planet. So if you want to optimize those three things, red meat is the way to go. And they are the least inflammatory. They are the least toxic. Like, everything about red meat is optimal for an elimination diet, because it gives you the most nutrition with the least interference. And I think everybody should try that for 90 days. If that's not where you want to stay after the 90 days, then fantastic. But I guarantee you're going to notice some things about your quality of life, your body composition, your health, aches and pains. All sorts of things are going to happen that you're not going to be like, how in the world is what I was eating making these things happen? And it's going to start you asking questions that you might not have asked before.
So let's say somebody tries it, right,
Yeah.
for 90 days.
Mhm.
and we talk about is this sustainable, and they know that they're not going to do it for longer period of time. The
Sure.
question that I have is, are also the results and the benefits for these people sustainable as well? Because a lot of people go vegan, right? Vegetarian and then vegan, and they have this short-term benefit, and then a lot of nutrient deficiencies can
Right.
kick in.
Yep.
And now they see that long-term that was not a good solution, but
Correct.
short-term it worked amazingly well.
Sure.
With carnivore, my question to you is steering towards microbiome
Mhm.
potential problems, and I wanted to ask you straight up so you can tell me,
Yeah.
what your mitigation strategies for this, and what can we do, because a lot of people say that when you switch to carnivore,
Hmm.
then your microbiome also adjusts, because
Yep.
now we have different types of food that is in the system.
Yep.
So right now you don't have the diversity that is needed for health, and
Yeah.
that's what I'm hearing a lot, but I don't have enough information to respond to it.
Yeah.
So what would you?
So I think, okay, so first thing we talk about when we talk about gut health, we have no idea what we're talking about when it comes to gut health. I don't care who you talk to, any gut health microbiome specialist, we have no idea. There is so much going on with the gut. We call it the second brain, all these different things. There's a lot of information. Gut health, gut science is one of the big ones right now that has conflicting information everywhere. Everything's, it's this thing, and then it's this thing, then it's that thing, then it's this other thing. Like, it just goes back and forth every other day. Um, I could say that there have been some studies that have come out. I'd have to look them up. It's been a while since I remember looking at them, that talk about carnivores having a more biodiverse microbiome, more because there's less inflammation. It allows more growth, and it doesn't inhibit growth. There's other And there's here, this is a concept. Let's not even get into the science, because we could go into circles on the science. Let's talk conceptually. If we assume, or if we can say that red meat is the most nutrient dense, bioavailable, and satiating food on the planet, if that's all I'm eating, and my body optimizes for that intake and gets rid of what it needs to process less bioavailable, less nutrient dense, less satiating, and in some cases toxic food, how is that a bad thing?
Because possibly when you start re-implementing, I'm not saying it is a bad thing, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to understand both sides, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's fascinating for me to process the information and learn at the same time,
Sure,
because
sure.
these concepts make a lot of sense on both sides. So
Yeah.
if what you said makes a lot of sense. Now somebody else will say, well, if I know I'm not going to stay carnivore and I'm going to
Ah,
start
yes,
reintroducing,
yes,
right, the food, now how
yes.
is my microbiome ready for that?
Okay, so now we're talking about the individual decision once you have the knowledge. This is why the trying it for 90 days is really important. Try it for 90 days. What happens to my body? I love how I feel. This is freaking fantastic. Now you have a choice. But I really like Brussels sprouts. Okay, put some Brussels sprouts back in your diet after 90 days. How do you feel? What happens? Do you feel bloated? Do you have gas? Do you get pain in your joints now? Do you get a skin rash? What is your reaction to putting Brussels sprouts back in your diet? If any of those things happen, now you have the question. Okay, my body obviously doesn't like this. And here's what I'm saying. Your body obviously doesn't like this. It's not that your body is reacting because you're putting something back in your diet that you should be able to eat. That's not how this works. And this is the trap that a lot of people get into. If I'm eating the cleanest, healthiest food in the planet, and my body is optimized to process the cleanest, healthiest food on the planet, if I have a bad reaction to anything else, it's because that my body doesn't want it. Okay? There's nothing that says we should be able to eat X. We should be able to eat Y. Yeah, your body can process it, but guess what? It takes extra effort. It's higher in oxidative stress, it's higher in inflammation, and it adds more work for your body to process and deal with it. So that's fine. if the person as an individual decides, I'm okay with being a little bloated when I eat this, and if I get used to it, maybe the bloating will go down a little bit. I can have my Brussels sprouts whenever I want. No big deal. That's an individual decision. But there isn't anything saying that we should be able to. Everything comes at a cost. Either the cost is restricting something because you know it affects you, or eating it and letting it affect you.
I have a question.
Mhm.
So we have another concept, different concept, and I'm just trying to pick your brain how you
Yeah,
process
we're
things like
going
this.
all over the place now.
Because I'm here, and you know what? It's on one hand, I do want people to have a very structured interview and understand what the three keys to proper nutrition
Yeah,
or to good nutrition are,
yeah,
and they do know this from the interview. Also, there is another part that I just want to take advantage of the expertise that you have and the
mhm,
experience and the honesty that you have to admit certain things and to process, like you mentioned, we don't know what we're talking about with the gut. I love that, because that means that if we don't know, you're not making something up and just showing the scientific research paper
right.
for something. If we actually have some question marks, people should know that there are some question marks about that thing. So I heard something about optimizing for the short-term gains
Mhm.
versus how do I feel and look and function today versus optimizing for longevity. And I found that concept fascinating,
Yeah,
because I thought that they're one and the same, that if I feel look good today, that means that I'm actually optimizing for my body staying like this longer. But they were saying that it's actually the opposite, because there is this process of almost like giving your body crutches, that now we have so much support and so much nutrition that I don't need to produce, all these different other, I don't need to have all these other mechanisms of support
are
function in
you
such a
talking
good
about
way.
with like supplementation and things like that, or
So, no, specifically about red meat and carnivore being so nutrient dense and so supportive for the body, that that it's not good for longevity because of that fact.
that is
And
the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
so
That's
the
like saying
concept that,
it's not it's better for an alcoholic to have a beer once a week so that they can maintain their lifestyle and not be an alcoholic.
so I think it was
I don't
David Sinclair what I
Yeah,
heard it,
that makes
and
no
let
sense
me
to me
give
at
it
all.
the angle. So he was saying that he was eating something. I don't remember exactly what his diet was, but it
Mhm,
was, to my surprise, it was not the diet that is the most nutrient dense,
mhm,
carnivore diet, but a very
sure.
different one. And he was saying that if he was optimizing for longevity, if he's optimizing for longevity, it's a different diet that forces the body to not actually be eating optimized food. And I think that was either him or Brian Johnson. I don't remember which
Okay,
one, but it
well,
was
if
like
we're talking about Brian
one of the
Johnson,
authorities
I'm
here.
not even gonna go there. Let's do this. There is a difference between optimizing for the short term and optimizing for the long term. And they are not, and they are from a nutrition perspective. It's more about the following the principles versus following the protocols. I can follow a ton of protocols and make myself look great and feel great in the short term. They may not be the best choices for me in the long term. Okay, I think that's a different conversation than what you're talking about. Longevity science, okay, is a crock. Okay, we don't have. I don't know of any studies. There may be out there. I don't know of any studies that have done any specific protocol for 80 years to see if it extended somebody's life by 10 years or not. I don't know if we have any studies that say that we can prove and say definitively these people did X, Y, or Z and they all lived 20 years longer than they would have. Even if we had that, how do we know if that's actually 20 years longer than they would have? Right? Longevity science is complete and utter marketing bullcrap. Okay? And anybody who tells you that they have a solution that's going to help you live longer is missing the point. I don't want to live longer. I want to live better.
That's
Okay.
a very, very good point.
And the
Because
whole
what's the
process,
point of living to 120
yeah,
without the quality of
right.
life?
So if I'm going to not eat meat to try to live longer, and that means by definition, I'm going to have less muscle mass, I'm going to be less physically capable, I'm going to be less um, resilient, more susceptible to injury, more susceptible to sickness. If I have to go to the hospital, it's my hospital stays are statistically going to be longer. Like there's a whole bunch of things that go into not eating red meat and not focusing on the protein and not building lean mass and not keeping myself physically independent. All of that stuff is far more important than adding 5 years to my life.
It's such a good point. It doesn't give necessarily the answer to the question here, but really there may be no studies or no definitive answer because we truly don't know. At the same time, we know that if it works for now, and it works not only for now, but you've been on this diet following these protocols and principles for years and still doing good, and we would see you looking very different and functioning very different if it was not good for you. So there's no question that when I look at you, you look very healthy. And I think that everything that, from reading your bio and reading about you and knowing you, you talk about optimizing for the quality of life. And I think this is really the key word here: quality of life. How do you want to live? And then how long can you live with that optimum quality of life, with being able to do with your body as much as you want to do with your body for as long as it is humanly possible? I think this is it. This is a perfect moment for me to ask you, where can people have access to you? How, where they can find you?
If you go to my website, it's coachbronson.com. I have a YouTube channel that's coach.bronson, and my Instagram is coach.bronson. And that's where I'm at. Those are my spots. I have a book that's coming out, and that is you can check that out at bodyconfidentbook.com.
Bodyconfidentbook.com. Guys, take a note. If you're listening, remember bodyconfidentbook.com. If you're watching, it's going to be in the show notes for sure. Connect with Bronson. If you're a healthcare provider, if you're a doctor, connect with him because he has access to a lot of knowledge, a lot of resources. We have not been able to talk about all the different things that he is doing in one interview because I wanted to focus on that one subject, and we still focus on three. But, there's so much when you connect with people with a lot of experience, when you connect with people who are honest, who are truly basing everything in a practical application, there is a beautiful synergy that is happening. And I talk about integrative healthcare all the time. And sometimes people ask me, what are non-doctors doing in our doctors networking group? I see you, Bronson, as much as a doctor as somebody who has a DR next to their name. Because the doctor is not what we study, how we study, which school we finish. You are part of the healthcare system. You're helping people become healthy. I would even argue that it's more important to have major changes made in between the doctor's visits than at the doctor's visits. And that's where you are.
Yeah, I would like to. Yeah, sorry. I'd like to also just say that what we've talked about today is kind of the tip of the iceberg behind the method that I follow, that I use in my. I mean, I could say practice, right? Because I look again. I also kind of look at myself not as a doctor, but kind of from a scientific perspective, a clinical perspective. I've been in clinical practice for over 10 years, right? Hands-on working with people, trying to help them solve their quality of life issues. Um, the framework that I use is basically what I lay out in the book because I want everyone to have an idea of how this works and how they can evaluate the things that they're doing and then go back and make adjustments if they need to without getting confused and getting lost in the mix. And part of that is educating doctors, educating clinicians. So I actually am working on a presentation and potentially a course, wink, wink, on turning this into a framework for patient success that I can give to and talk to doctors about how they can implement this as a framework in their clinics. So that's something we could talk about down the road too.
I love that. And it's all about how do we make it easy? Because the doctor does not have a time to do what you do. Yeah, and you give the resources, you give the path to follow, you make it easy. And that's what I love about the synergy between different healthcare practitioners, which I see you as one of them, healthcare provider, healthcare practitioner. And all the doctors listening to our podcast, please connect with Bronson if you would like, collaborate, cross-refer, think about what is there for your patients, especially if somebody would like to try some of these easy to apply principles, because that's what it is all about. I think that conflicting information and the overwhelm that is on the marketplace, that a lot of people just get so confused that they give up and they say, F it, or whatever word we're going to use here. And they will just say, hey, I'm done with this because this guy told me to follow this. It didn't work. This guy told me to follow something else and it didn't work. What am I supposed to do? And what I love about your work, Bronson, and that's why I wanted to invite you here, and I would love to hear more from you, is how do we make it easy for people? How do we make them take the step from today to tomorrow, evaluating the ground where I'm at, and then going one step farther towards the goal that is sustainable, that is achievable, with a method, or rather a principle that is going to be, you're going to be able to follow it with pleasure and with a smile, have a good quality of life. Pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I think just helping people understand that the biggest, I'll just end with this. I think if the change that you're looking to make isn't something that you honestly can say that you will do every single day, then find a different thing. It's okay to acknowledge, and this is where a lot of people get stuck. They feel like, well, I can't not do it because, I have to make a change, and this is the one thing that everyone says I should do. You don't have to do. The expectation for what you do only should come from you.
Because you are in charge of your life.
You're in charge. It's your goal. It's your life. If, someone says this is what you need to do, and you're like, there's no way I'm doing that, but I can do this. Right? So don't just blanket stop something and say, I'm not going to do it. Always end with, but I can do this. What can I do? There has to be something. What's the smallest thing I can do that's going to move me forward? That's all it takes.
If you're listening or watching, connect with Bronson, follow him. Amazing guy, amazing resources. Till next one. All the best. Take care.